Donald Trump is in the Epstein emails. As Nicole Wallace and I were just discussing, that is now confirmed. Prior to this, responsible people, lawyers who deal in evidence, journalists who deal with what we know and don't know, weren't saying that yet. Other people have said all kinds of things, by the way, on both sides of this. But what you see on your screen, our headline here, is the first time this has been reported and confirmed with receipts because Epstein himself emailed about Trump. We have this from Congress. These are damning emails where Epstein says, this is his view, what he alleges, that Donald Trump knew of Epstein's conduct. He sent an email in 2019, revealed for the first time ever today, so long after his death. We now learn that he says, of course, Trump knew about, quote, the girls. Now, that is a major statement.
Let's pause right there. Notice how MSNBC is framing this? Damning emails. Really? Because what we actually have here are emails from Giuffre Epstein, a known liar, manipulator, and convicted sex trafficker, making vague references in private correspondence. This is the same guy who lied to everyone about everything. But suddenly, when it serves a political narrative against Trump, we're supposed to treat his words as gospel truth? Here's what MSNBC conveniently glosses over. The so-called victim mentioned in these emails, that's Virginia Giuffre, and she repeatedly, publicly stated that Trump never did anything wrong. She said he couldn't have been friendlier to her. She never accused Trump of any misconduct whatsoever. In fact, in her 2016 sworn deposition, you know, the kind where you face perjury charges for lying, she explicitly said, I don't think Donald Trump participated in anything. But Democrats redacted her name in the release. Why? Because if people knew it was Virginia Giuffre, someone who cleared Trump, it would completely undermine their narrative. Republicans on the Oversight Committee called this out immediately.
Which seems to be a reference to a public fallout that we have seen. That Trump and Epstein were close, they would socialize together. We've linked them in public reporting before, separate from what's in the files. We knew that they publicly appeared together. That was in the 2000s and later had this falling out. Epstein says Trump asked him to basically resign or leave Mar-a-Lago, but Epstein insists he wasn't formally a member. Now, Trump had claimed that he banned Epstein from the resort after basically a dispute over people who worked there. That's one way to put it. Others have questioned what it meant that they basically, quote, took people that worked for me and what kind of pressure and scrutiny that puts on both men and the people in their employ. Another Epstein email from 2011, newly revealed today for the first time, is the bombshell. It is redacted with the word victim, and I want to draw your attention to exactly what it says. Epstein is emailing secretly to Maxwell, later convicted for his sex trafficking ring, that Trump had spent hours at his house, hours at Epstein's house with, and redacted by the government, we just see the word victim. That's the individual name. The White House isn't denying that that was a victim. I'll get to that today. But basically, this is the now revealed claim. The emails do not dictate a kind of specific misconduct by Trump, although they say he knew about the, quote, girls, and if you take the term girls literally, combined with what Maxwell was convicted of, and a heck of a lot of other reporting, the allegation from Epstein, now deceased, is that Trump knew about what girls, what minors, what females under 18 were doing.
Stop. Let's fact-check MSNBC's fact-checkers, shall we? They're breathlessly reporting that Trump spent hours at Epstein's house with a victim, again, Virginia Giuffre, who never accused Trump of anything wrong. But here's what they're not telling you. This email is from 2011, 2 years after Epstein went to prison. Epstein's writing to Ghislaine Maxwell saying Trump hasn't barked, meaning Trump hasn't said anything publicly about Epstein. Why would that be noteworthy to Epstein? Because Trump had already kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago years earlier for being inappropriate with employees. That's not the behavior of someone in on it. That's the behavior of someone who saw something wrong and took action.
The allegation from Epstein, now deceased, is that Trump knew about what girls, what minors, what females under 18 were doing, a type of wrongdoing. This is a huge deal. Trump spent hours with redacted victim. Trump knew what was going on. And remember, Trump claimed repeatedly last year, and his attorney general claimed this year, they would release the Epstein files. Now, people can debate what that term means. It's not a term you can just define in a dictionary or in any government handbook. Some people use it to mean what they believe to be a kind of secret pile of documents that the DOJ has. Other people mean just any material that's secret that could come out. The Epstein estate clearly has some of this material, which is how it got to Congress. I will tell you in our special report why the DOJ most probably has it. Now, the Trump link to Epstein has been documented. But this is the first time we have seen Epstein, in his own now deceased hand, put on paper or email, put down as a record what he thought Trump did and knew. And Maxwell responds back. And again, they thought this was secret. This is considered credible evidence. It's the kind of damning material that you can understand why Trump would want to keep secret. And that is clear, even apart from whether it rises to a legal level that investigators or federal prosecutors would look at. And when I say investigators, I mean they would have to investigate it. We are not.
Hold on. MSNBC is making a massive logical leap here. An email where Epstein claims, of course he knew about the girls, as he asked Ghislaine to stop, that's somehow proof Trump knew about sex trafficking? Let's use some basic logic here. If Trump asked Ghislaine Maxwell to stop recruiting at Mar-a-Lago, which Trump has publicly stated he did, that means he saw inappropriate behavior and shut it down. That's evidence against involvement, not for it. You don't tell someone to stop doing something if you're participating in it yourself. But MSNBC twists this into Trump knew what was going on. Yeah, he knew Epstein was being a creep around his employees, so he banned him. That's literally what the email suggests, but they're spinning it as suspicious.
But if you think back outside of the Trump era to just normal political times, being even linked this way to a convicted sex trafficker like Maxwell and the deceased accused sex trafficker Epstein, he just wasn't tried because he died in prison, this is a huge bombshell in and of itself. And there's more coming, according to at least a slim majority of the current Congress. Because late today, the House finally swore in Congresswoman Giuffre. This was after Mike Johnson had used the shutdown to delay this for 50 days. And that sets in motion what Democrats, with some Republicans, say are enough votes to override the Johnson-Trump secrecy agenda and get more Epstein materials released. So the vote is more relevant now than ever. You have this shocking new evidence. You have a Trump scandal that has been growing over time, not diminishing. And you have the administration, the Trump White House, basically saying, well, the Democrats selectively leaked a couple emails and that they're trying to, quote, smear Donald Trump. What's interesting about that is they are the ones who had long called to release the emails. I'll show you more on that. In addition, things are happening. We talk about sometimes nothing happening in Congress. Well, today, Republican lawmakers responded to Democrats and how they'd use their power, getting up off the mat here and doing something, and Republicans responded by doing more, which interestingly also hurts the Trump White House, releasing about 20,000 other documents from the Epstein estate. We have reporters sifting through those here. I can tell you a lot of folks in Washington, in media, in law, and certainly in politics are sifting through those. Now let me turn to Trump's broken promise. Trump is in the Epstein emails, yet he campaigned on this kind of transparency, releasing these emails and even more. And then after being sworn in, his Attorney General, Bondi, promised to release more Epstein material.
Now we get to the real hypocrisy. MSNBC is attacking Trump for not releasing more Epstein files. But let's talk about what has been released. Over 20,000 documents from the Epstein estate were released by Republicans on the Oversight Committee this week. The Justice Department under Trump conducted the most thorough review of the Epstein case in history and concluded there was no blackmail operation and no additional charges to bring. But here's the kicker. When Democrats controlled Congress and the White House, what did they release? Nothing. When Biden was president, what transparency did we get? Zero. But now that Trump is back, suddenly Democrats are releasing selectively chosen emails with victims' names redacted to hide exculpatory information, and the media is running with it as a bombshell. If these emails were so damning, why did Democrats sit on them until now? Why release them during a government funding debate? Could it possibly be, and I'm just spitballing here, political timing to distract from Democrats' failures?
The list of clients that went to the island has not been made public. So if you're able to, you'll be...
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now.
And she would go on to vow to release what she said was sitting on her desk. She talked about a client list. And then later, and this is what caused such a MAGA uproar, AG Bondi, under Trump DOJ, said there was nothing more to release at all and said there was no possible blackmail. One of the other emails to a writer talks about that, although it doesn't confirm it. So what we have is Donald Trump and his top DOJ official claiming they would do part of what's happening today. And now that it's happening today, over their objections, they're saying this is bad. And that's why this story, although it starts with the victims, and we've had victims on this program, we have a Miami Herald reporter coming up who started all this work long before it was a political football. And that matters. This also matters because it is a kind of an illustration of the most important problem with the way Donald Trump is governing right now. MAGA people notice it on some topics, other people notice it on other topics. But whether he's campaigning on lower prices or Epstein transparency, once in office, he not only turns to other issues, but lies about these things. And so depending on which issue you care about, you start to notice it. Donald Trump has been criticized more on this issue from the right than probably any other thing we can measure this year. And today shows those criticisms were on the right track, that he was acting guilty because he's in the files, and that when he attacked the Wall Street Journal, owned by Rupert Murdoch, and other outlets for reporting that he was linked to Epstein, that he wrote him a birthday card, that Pam Bondi said he was in the files or the emails. He's in the emails. We have that today. And we've shown you that Trump and Epstein have a long, detailed, repeating history. We documented it in these two timelines, their relationship on the jet and the parties. And as you see over to the right, a lengthy case timeline where we showed some of these conflicts of interest. You got the parties in New York, you got Mar-a-Lago, you got video of them looking like two guys who definitely enjoyed each other's company. And yes, they claimed a later falling out. Trump is trying to downplay what actually happened. He has sued the Wall Street Journal because they published evidence, corroboration. That birthday card was later leaked by, do you remember where it came? Where it came from? The Epstein estate. In law, they call this a chain of custody. That when you have material and it goes from, say, the original source, literally Epstein's home, out to another reputable source, say prosecutors or the government or Congress, that's the chain of custody. That authenticates the material. It looks like Donald Trump and some people around him knew he was in these emails, knew about this birthday card, if he wrote it and signed it, and Pam Bondi, according to reporting that Trump objected to, warned him and said maybe it's better to take the political hit for breaking the campaign vow or looking like you were misleading or lying than take the hit for being in the emails. But look what's happened. Now they've taken the hit for both. And the story's not over.
This is where MSNBC really shows its hand. They're claiming Trump lied about Epstein transparency. But what actually happened? Trump's DOJ conducted a comprehensive review and concluded correctly that releasing certain materials would violate victims' privacy and potentially involve child exploitation material. The FBI and DOJ issued a statement saying, "We will not permit the release of child pornography. One of our highest priorities is combating child exploitation and bringing justice to victims." So Trump's administration is being attacked for, what, following the law and protecting victims? But according to MSNBC, this is somehow suspicious. They want him to release everything, including potentially illegal material, so they can claim there's a cover-up when he doesn't. Let me end with this reality check that MSNBC desperately doesn't want you to know. Virginia Giuffre never accused Trump of any wrongdoing. She said the opposite in sworn testimony. Trump banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago before any of this became public. That's documented. No victim has ever implicated Trump in Epstein's crimes, not one. Court documents from Ghislaine Maxwell's trial contain 0 allegations against Trump. The DOJ under Trump conducted the most thorough Epstein investigation ever and found no evidence to charge anyone else. Meanwhile, these same emails that MSNBC is breathlessly reporting show Epstein had far closer relationships with other high-profile figures, including people who actually flew to his island multiple times. But notice how MSNBC isn't leading with those stories? This is what media bias looks like, folks. They take emails from a convicted liar and sex trafficker, strip away all context, hide exculpatory information, and present it as a bombshell against Trump. They're literally trusting the word of Giuffre Epstein, a man who lied professionally, over the sworn testimony of his victims. The American people are smarter than this. They see through the selective leaks, the convenient timing, and the desperate attempts to distract from real issues. And that's exactly why MSNBC's ratings continue to crater while trust in mainstream media hits all-time lows.